5.7% below budget for the first 6 months of the year. We do have a few things and some catching up to do. We've now got our new fire and operations manager on board, and there are some extra things that we want to get done in the second half of the year. So we expect for the operational side that the airport will end up for the operations in line with budget for the full year. Looking at the state measures as they are in the statement of intent, things haven't changed too much since I spoke to you about 3 months ago. We're still in a really good place. All measures, including passenger numbers and aircraft movements, are ahead of budget for the first seven months of the year. Aircraft movements are fractionally behind last year, but passenger numbers are what drives our revenue, and they're ahead of last year. So that's the important measure. Looking at passenger numbers, this tells an interesting picture. Basically, Christchurch, Rotorua and Rotorua Wellington are reasonably flat. Christchurch, Rotorua is an area that we need to focus on, and that is definitely within the plan. Getting that Christchurch, Rotorua up and humming will help us get to the ultimate goal of having a Rotorua Queenstown direct service. So concentrating on that sector will definitely is important, and that's definitely within our sights to do that. Auckland Rotorua is a good news story. Obviously the last beach flight was on the 8th of February, so now all flights in and out of Rotorua Airport are on Q300 and ATR aircraft, and Auckland Rotorua is really showing the benefit of this. With the larger aircraft, Air New Zealand have got there are more flexibility, more ability to put groups on, more ability for people to connect with other flights, and lower fares is, I think, what's really driving this. So we're really seeing that growth on that Auckland Rotorua sector, which is really exciting. Overall, passenger numbers are up 1.4% for the airport, so the growth that we're seeing in the domestic passengers is exceeding what the passenger numbers that we lost with the exit of Rotorua Sydney. So all in all, we're in a good place and doing really well. So I'll hand over now to Peter, who's going to talk to you about what's ahead, some exciting things on the cards.
Thanks, Nicole. So there's no doubt that the airport is benefiting from the increased tourism and vibrancy that Rotorua is currently seeing. It is, I think, in a pretty good position financially. With the first half of the year has really been devoted to completing the asset transfer, bidding in the new management with Nicole and our new fire and operations manager, and really about laying the foundations for the future. The next step is to invest in infrastructure. We have got some monies set aside in the 2015 to 2018 Statement of Intent, and also in our 20-year forecast allocated for capital improvement works. And we're about to kick off a project to rebuild the fire station and the original terminal. One of the good things about our Chief Executive is that she's smart and she knows how to get things done. She was very keen to get this fire station rebuilt, and so she scheduled the annual staff Christmas barbecue in the fire station and invited the board members, which meant that we had to see the dire state that the fire station was in, and it followed then that very promptly thereafter the board decided to build the fire station, or rebuild the fire station. The other thing we're going to do is, at the same time, and we're doing that because we think we can get the most value from the project, we're going to stage these two projects together. We're also looking to do work on the original terminal. Now that original terminal, which is stuck in between the two other parts of the terminal, dates back to 1963. Now I date back to 1962, and I'm feeling pretty creaky these days, and so it's no surprise to me that the 1963 terminal is also feeling and looking pretty creaky. So there's some work that needs to be done in terms of earthquake strengthening, and we're going to take the opportunity to do a better job in terms of linking the two parts of the terminal together. The good news is the money's there, and we're looking to space that over a 4-year period. So from our perspective, these are capital works that are going to contribute to the airport's key priorities, not the least of which is being an airport that you can all be proud of. One of the other things that I think is very important to the board and also to Nicole and her team is it's an opportunity here, particularly with the terminal, to showcase the best of what Rotorua has to offer. And two of the overarching goals of the project, as you'll see on the slides, are to create a better sense of arrival for visitors to Rotorua. I've been flying into Rotorua since the mid-1980s, and to be honest, not much has changed about the sense of arrival, and I think we can do a heck of a lot better. We can also make sure that we consider the wood first policy that the council has, and very much looking to make sure that the project, which is going to kick off very shortly, will be aligned with achieving the council's key outcomes. So, Madam Chair, councillors, that's it. We've tried to keep it fairly brief, but hopefully you see that we've laid I think, a good foundation for the future, and we've got some exciting capital works that I think will not only be good for people coming to the airport, but also the folks that work there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good, concise presentation. We appreciate that. Right, Your Worship, and then Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, thanks, Peter, and great progress. The issue that we're often asked is, should we be building that Rotorua Christchurch link that you mentioned, and with the Q300s, will that speed up the pressure on Air New Zealand to extend that Rotorua Christchurch Queenstown link, because more capacity's coming in via Auckland now? Or is that just something we've just got to keep plugging away on? And the other issue I'm always asked when I'm out is, for goodness sake, work to get another overseas airline to come into Rotorua. Give us your balance of view on whether that's ever possible.
Thanks, Your Worship. If I could make a couple of introductory comments and then ask Nicole to talk as well. I think it's become clear in the conversations that Nicole and the folks from Destination Rotorua have been having for some time that the best pathway, the most efficient and effective and fastest pathway to get a direct link to Queenstown is to build up the Christchurch link. That seems to have become quite clear. And it's already our most important route. The goal is really to really substantially increase it in size. That's the first point. The second point in relation to other airlines, I used to be the Deputy Chairman of Tourism New Zealand, and we had a view at Tourism New Zealand that we always viewed Air New Zealand as the national flag carrier and of very great importance, but equally we also realised that a very great proportion of people who come to this country come via air, and that it was very important for us to have good quality relationships with all potential air carriers. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't continue to have that view at the airport. In other words, we are very grateful and very supportive of Air New Zealand as our national flag carrier, but equally I think it's critically important that we continue to foster good quality relationships with other folks who might want to come to the airport, and we'll continue to do that. Nicole?
Just further to Peter's point there, I think your second option with Rotorua Christchurch is definitely the right one. We need to keep plugging away at it. It's got their ATRs on Christchurch Rotorua at the moment, which are the 68-seaters. The Q300s are on the Auckland and the Wellington sector. So I think the next step would be, the ideal in my world would be if we could get jets back on Christchurch Rotorua. It won't be all jet services, it would just be too much of it because it's double the amount of seats. So if you go to the larger aircraft, you lose frequency and you've got to play that balancing game. But having those larger aircrafts would give much more flexibility, especially over the summer months, for groups that want to travel. And that's why at the moment they're attracted to sectors like Auckland, Queenstown, because they're a larger aircraft and there's high frequency. So they've got a really good choice of flights to choose from. And likewise, Air New Zealand or Jetstar have got a good choice of seats to give them at the right price. So getting some of that critical mass onto Christchurch Rotorua, I think for us is critical. Auckland Rotorua and the growth we're seeing on that isn't going to harm our chances in any way. I think if anything what it will do is actually improve it, because it now gives passengers another way to get to either Christchurch or Queenstown, and Air New Zealand can see all those numbers. So we're already seeing more passengers travelling Rotorua, Auckland, Christchurch than we were before. and that's just because of that increased capacity. And Air New Zealand have all those details, so no, it won't harm us. It's all going towards getting us towards our end goal. With regards to another airline coming into Rotorua, probably just important to make the note that we cannot, because of the hills and our beautiful geographic location, we're not in a geographic situation that we can sustain anything bigger than the type of aircraft that we already have. So the A320s or the 737s are the biggest aircraft we can get into Rotorua, and that's not because of our length of our runway. We're maxed out on that. It's because of the hills and the geographic location and the climbing out that they need. So therefore, we're limited to any aircraft from Australia. Basically, is the Tasman is really, or the Pacific Islands. If the demand was there, are the furthest we could fly. So therefore, another airline that wasn't Air New Zealand, you'd have to be looking at, say, a Jetstar or a Qantas. And as Peter said, look, we will happily talk to anybody that is interested in coming to the airport. I think at the moment our focus should be on getting our domestic really up and humming, but likewise, if there are opportunities for international, we wouldn't be turning them down.
Thanks very much. Now, Councillor Donaldson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. My question through you, Nicole, was around the flatness in the Christchurch numbers. I'm in a forum with Air New Zealand in Auckland on Friday, and we've raised this as a question. So it was, and you partly addressed it, whether it was a capacity issue or whether it's the fares or whether it is the time in travelling turboprop as opposed to a jet that are the issue, or is it a combination of the lot of those?
I can't answer your question in too much detail in a public forum, I'm afraid, but I would be happy to discuss it with you in more detail before your meeting on Friday. There's a few things at play, but it's not a bad news story.
Thank you, and great to see you doing something about the terminal. It was pretty much the way it was when Councillor Bentley and I were members of Sulphur City Skydivers in 1970, I think it was.
Councillor McVicker.
Chair, good to see the results that you're achieving. A couple of questions, if I may. Kiwi Air, I see that they have recently extended their flights from Tauranga to Nelson to Christchurch. Have we been talking to them?
Short answer is no, we haven't. Let them get off the ground in Tauranga first. They've got quite low frequency, sort of a couple of times a week, so it would be good to let them bed themselves in there, but absolutely, I haven't been approached by them, but nor have we approached them.
Secondly, general aviation, I see that we're not making much improvement there. Is it a struggle to grow that sector?
Yeah, the sector is struggling nationally. It's not a Rotorua phenomenon. Overall, there are sort of decreased general aviation numbers. So it's definitely something that we're doing our best to encourage. The Rotorua Air Club have been sort of getting themselves back up on their feet. We've offered them discounted landing fees and so forth for a certain time to help them with that. We're talking to a flight training school that would significantly change those numbers. So it's not a Rotorua problem. We're not doing anything apart from the flight training school as a potential option. We're not doing anything that's going to dramatically change them in the near future. I suppose one other important thing to remember is that the revenue we get from general aviation is only a very small part of the bigger picture. It's the commercial flights that definitely dominate that.
Lastly, airport land, are we making any progress there in utilising some of the land that we have?
We're still very much in the information gathering stage, so I'm at the moment getting geotech reports, engaging master planners to try and work out what we might do in that area. So it's a work in progress. We're still very much in the early stages, but it is still on the horizon.
Okay, Councillor Gordon, then Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report. A number of people in the business community reckon it's the timing of Air New Zealand planes which is making it difficult for business people coming in and out of Rotorua either same day or within the time schedule, allowing them to do the requirement in business. And the other item is with your redevelopment of your main terminal, or the old part to a newer part, are you planning to request, to ask Air New Zealand whether they're going to put a Corrie lounge in there? Because apparently that is holding a lot of people back too at times.
So address in two parts. Now I've forgotten the first part of the question. Oh, timing of schedules. So the timing, I can tell you that Air New Zealand have been doing quite a big review of their schedules, and they haven't shared the details with me of those yet, but they will be in a position to do that very shortly. Any feedback I have been getting from the community regarding the timings of flights, I've been passing through to the Air New Zealand scheduling team, so if anyone has questions or feedback on specific timings from the community, please, they're more than welcome to contact me direct and I'll make sure that information gets through. So we expect to see some changes to timings, whether they'll be significant or not, and whether they'll how they'll affect the business community. I'm not 100% sure at this stage, but I know that is something Air New Zealand have been looking at. With regard to the Corrie Lounge, that is something that's an ongoing discussion with Air New Zealand. At the moment, our numbers through the eligible passenger numbers through the terminal don't justify a Corrie Lounge. Air New Zealand cannot make the numbers stack up. But absolutely, as part of the plan, that is one of the things that we will be making sure we have. We won't be building it straight away. Obviously, that wouldn't happen until Air New Zealand are ready for it, but we'll be making sure that there is the option to do that and the facility to do that within the airport at a future date.
Councillor, that's a really good question, and indeed in 2015 we pushed Air New Zealand very, very hard on the issue of a Corrie Lounge, because I have the same sense as you, particularly with the developments at Whakatane and Taupo. What we really want to be able to do is to attract more business folks to come to the airport, maybe a little early, do some work before they fly out. It's good critical mass for the airport. So as Nicola said, we'll be factoring that into the terminal, but fundamentally, because it's a very economically driven organisation, Air New Zealand, we've got to try and get the numbers up as much as we can.
Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Nicole. I just wonder, are you looking to increase the retail offering as part of that redevelopment in the terminal?
Short answer is no, not specifically. We will. We're mainly addressing the middle part of the terminal, and the retail will sort of sits outside of that at the moment, so it's outside of the scope, but it's always something we've got in the back of our minds. So increase it, probably not. There may be changes in the future, but I don't expect that that'll be increased.
Bentley.
Sorry,
Thank you, Madam
sorry,
Chair.
Madam Chair. If I could just address your question. I'll give you a slightly different answer in terms of what I want. Nicole's absolutely right to say that we're not going to increase likely the retail offering, but I'm very keen to enhance the retail offering at the appropriate time. I really want to build on the fact that for many folks, this is their first port of call, port of arrival for Rotorua. So I really want folks to have a sense of arrival to Rotorua. And I therefore want to make sure that as much as possible the retail offering reflects and showcases the best that Rotorua has to offer. So I'm putting some pressure on Nicole at an appropriate time to make sure that we enhance the retail offering.
Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you both for your presentation. I'm a little bit of a follow-up from Councillor McVicker, and that I've only been on council for one term, so I've only got a couple of years' experience. But from the very first presentation that we had from the airport, we were told that the use of the land was work in progress. And in 2 years, it hasn't advanced a hell of a lot further than that. When are we going to do something about especially the southern end of the airport?
A lot of it comes down to the roundabout, to be honest with you. So access into that land is critical, and until we can unlock the roundabout, we can't unlock the land. So what we're doing is we're making sure that we've got everything ready to go, so that when that happens, we're ready to go as well.
I had to leave, but one question arises from your comments earlier. If somebody comes up with a proposal in terms of wanting retail space to enhance the retail space that's there, you haven't got a closed book in terms of that?
No, absolutely not. We haven't got a closed book. Very open for offers. We are bound into existing lease agreements and the conditions that are on those, so I would have to work within those scopes, and that's why Peter and myself were referring to at appropriate times. But, yep, no, haven't got a closed book. I'm have an open door policy and very open to all ideas, whether it be about retail or anything else at the airport.
Just a quick question. Is there an open day plan for 2016?
No, we're not going to have an open day this year. What we have had is the Bike the Runway, where we did open up the airport facilities, and I see that as a really good way to engage with the community and have how, which better way to open up the airport than have everyone cycling around the runway, and we had sort of about 1,700 people there. A lot more than last year. It was a fantastic event. The weather turned on for us. It was so hot we had to get the fire trucks out and cool all the kids down, which they absolutely loved. So no, we're not having a runway because, we're not having an open day because we're doing other things such as Bike the Runway.
Well, thank you. There's been a lovely, good presentation and good questions. So thank you very much for that, and appreciate you coming, both of you. So I understand, Peter, that you are now leading Destination Rotorua. Is Oscar, Oscar's coming along as well, and I have a presentation. So welcome, Oscar.
Sure. Madam Chair, everybody.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Same face, different hat. I wanted to start a similar vein in relation to the airport with some thanks. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the board of Destination Rotorua. They make a very strong commitment to Rotorua as a destination. I appreciate their support. I also wanted to take the opportunity to thank again the council for its commitment and support for the tourism industry. And I also wanted to take an opportunity as well to thank the two senior line managers, Graham and Oscar, who are working tirelessly in terms of promoting and selling Rotorua as a destination. I certainly have in my mind a vision for Rotorua that it will be once again and forever one of the two premier tourism destinations in New Zealand. I think that the fabulous work that Graham and Oscar and their teams are doing at Destination Rotorua is taking us in that direction. And so to that end, I'm happy to report that in terms of the visitor expenditure goal of $1 billion by 2030, we're currently on target. I think, Oscar, from memory, the number in 2015 was $593 million, is that right? Yes. Equally, I'm happy to report that the organisation is making solid growth across all of the main indicators in both the domestic and international visitor markets. Visitor spend, visitor nights and visits and conferencing are all on target. Also on target in terms of achieving the organisation's headline KPIs, and importantly also on target in relation to the FY16 approved budget. I just did want to bring your attention to a number of organisational highlights, and I know that Oscar will jump in if I've missed anything important. One of the things that I think this council and Destination Rotorua can take a lot of credit for, not me because I wasn't around when this idea was initiated, is the partner program. What's happened now is that through your support and through the hard work of the folks at Destination Rotorua, 105 members of the tourism industry are now committing, I think, Oscar, it's now close to $900,000.
Yeah,
per annum.
for this quarter, Chairman, it's in that 800 mark, but we've now grown up to around 900.
So Naitahu's recently come on board. 105 partners, I think, is a very strong indication that you've got it right in terms of the offering, in terms of the support that Destination Rotorua is providing to these partners. Of course, because I'm a reasonably challenging kind of person, I'm now challenging Oscar and Mark and Graham to tell me what the evolution of that program looks like. I want to know what the partner program 2.0 looks like and 3.0, because I'm conscious of the fact that there are a lot of folks looking at the success of Destination Rotorua, what people like Oscar and his team and Graham and his team are achieving, and they're looking to emulate it, and I want to know how it is that we keep ahead of our competition. So I think that's a great story for which you all should take a lot of credit. One of the ways that we can continue to give life and make the partner program successful is by continuing to add value for the partners. It's absolutely critical that they see that Destination Rotorua, as an arm of the council, is helping them run successful businesses. And this is a great initiative with a focus on this very important market, the Chinese market. The folks at Destination Rotorua have been running workshops for operators to help them better understand that market, and it's just a short shot of I think what's been the 5th in Series Oscar. I think the next slide's got some really good feedback. There was a retail leaders incentive program that was done for the flight centre people, which attracted more than 100 people to Rotorua from the flight centre, and Oscar reports to me that the reports from the flight centre people is that Rotorua has grown to be the 2nd fastest growth region across New Zealand in terms of sales volume. So those are itineraries which include Rotorua. That's a really superb turnaround.
Just to add through the chair, it's not so much just 100 nominal people out of the Flight Centre group. We also had sort of the managing director and the heads of state across Flight Centre Australia. All these people are key travel sellers, i.e. managers of the retail outlets and chains that they come under their command, or the lead product agents. And as a result of that visit and their awareness of the destination, as the chair said, we've had phenomenal growth, second only to Queenstown in terms of inclusions for Rotorua, based on the awareness. And the agency is Flight Centre, their wholesale group is Infinity, and Infinity is a massive mover of people across the Tasman. So it's been really good.
You will all be, of course, familiar with the fabulous, famously Rotorua campaign. I think one of the things that I've been really impressed with since I came on board last August is the degree of focus. If I've learned anything in the last 30 years in business, it is that focus always wins out. And one of the things that I'm hugely impressed by is the focus that the team has developed around hot springs and wellness, contemporary Maori culture, and mountain biking, looking to really push those as key strengths of this market. And also a focus on trying to ensure that the terror of the tourism industry, which is the notorious seasonality of it, that as much as possible is being done to even out that seasonality by not just a focus on the international market, but also through the famously Rotorua campaign, a focus on the domestic market as well, particularly that weekend destination for Aucklanders. So there's an indication there that a lot of effort is going into continuing to build on that very successful campaign. And certainly one of the things I think that we've always got to keep in mind is that there are some folks who believe that these things need to have a short life and then you need to move on to some other form of branding. One of the things that we learned at Tourism New Zealand was that the 100% Pure New Zealand brand had real legs, and that there was no need to change the brand. It was simply about the way that you executed against that brand. And I think, again, as councillors and as residents, you should be really proud of the famously Rotorua campaign. I think it's got real legs. One of the other things that is very difficult about being a small country at the bottom end of the world is that with the kind of budgets that we have, and in a very noisy world, it's very difficult to spend enough money on standard advertising to get cut through. That was the problem we had at Tourism New Zealand. It's equally, even more so, a problem for a small city like Rotorua. And I think this next statistic is very, very impressive. This is that with 130,000 likes on Facebook, Rotorua is consistently ranked in the top 3 most engaged regions on Facebook. Now, I'm not happy about the fact it's top 3. I think it should be top 2, which is a challenge for Oscar. But this is about your organisation being smart, about making sure that the travel dollars, the dollars that you spend on tourism, go a lot further by using social media as a way to get cut through rather than simply relying on traditional advertising. We're certainly looking forward. You'll see that a substantial number of people are coming through the eyesight, but for those of you who spend a little bit of time in the eyesight, and I tend to terrorise Graham by turning up at unexpected times just to have a look around, I think that it's fair to say that he and I and the rest of the board are really looking forward to the opportunities that will arise from the planned seismic upgrades. I think that's going to substantially enhance the visitor experience, and hopefully that can be done as soon as possible. One of the most exciting recent developments, I think, in the tourism industry has been the starting out of the tree walk activity in the Redwoods Forest. That's a wonderful activity, and what it's led is it's led Graham to be able to have the time and space and incentive to be able to rework the Redwood Centre, which has seen as a result a substantial increase in door counts and, I'm happy to say, a substantial increase in sales as well. So that's a continued work in progress, but I think we're heading in the right direction. Just finally, I always ask the guys to spend as much time looking forward, more time looking forward than looking backwards, and if I just focus on where the forward focus is for the Destination Rotorua team at the moment. Of course, Crankworks is coming up in the next few days. Getting that, making that as successful and even more successful than it was last year will be a real focus for the team. Equally, turning around what I understand was a stupendous performance at Trends in 2015 and taking advantage of the second year of Trends, which is in May, a hugely important meeting of tourism folks. As I've previously indicated, the eyesight seismic upgrade is both needed and necessary and as soon as possible. And then, as we've previously said and discussed in relation to the airport, one of the benefits I think that I can bring serving across both the Destination Rotorua and airport boards is that I can make sure that the right people are talking to each other. And this is an area where we have a very common interest. We very much want to build the Christchurch market not only from a Destination Rotorua perspective, but also for the benefit of the airport as well. And as far as the eyesight folks are concerned, obviously they've got a lot of physical constraints in the current building, but Graham is telling me that they're continuing to beat their sales targets, which is a good sign. And also continuing to upgrade the look and feel and the quality of the Redwoods Visitor Centre is also a key priority for the eyesight team. Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation. Any questions, Your Worship?
Yeah, amazing report that reflects what's going on. Just one of the issues coming up with Trends. Last year, I was a guest, and I think Dave with the economic growth, but it would be wonderful if the councillors could be invited to walk through, just so they see where Rotorua is right at the centre of what's happening. I think we missed that opportunity last year, and it would be great if they could all see it. Thank you.
Kia ora, no problem. That will happen. And this year, where we're somewhat different to last year in some constraints, albeit those have added other issues, is we are the firm sole hosts this year. Last year, we partnered up with the Explore Central North Island, other regions, and we very much had to balance access, I suppose, in a way, in terms of the windows that we were able to do, walk the floors and such. This year, it's all us, and therefore it'll be all you, so no problem.
Councillor McVicker?
Chair, well done. Great to see the results that have been forthcoming. If you talk to anyone in the industry, they'll certainly confirm it's been a great Christmas, summer period. A question, if I may. In Saturday's Herald, there was an article from Tourism New Zealand highlighting the fact that tourism spend was $9.7 billion nationally over the period of a year, which is probably higher than the agricultural income. And their numbers, the visitors, 3.17 million, was 11% up on the previous year. Do we have any similar statistics which will give us an indication as to where we stand here in Rotorua?
We do, and I can hand these out for you if you like, but we've just literally this morning updated so every year we produce a one-pager on sort of the position of Rotorua tourism, so this is for the 2015 year. The very reason that Tourism New Zealand were in the Herald on the weekend able to make their announcement is the same dearth of information as what we've built quickly to finalise our figures. So we'd like to have a 2015 picture earlier than where we are in 2016, but we have to wait for the last of the statistics to come in. So long story short, where sort of the economic sort of investment and visitor expenditure for Rotorua last year was around 471 million. The update we can give for this year is 593 million. Sorry, for 2014 was 471. For 2015 we ended the year at 593. So things are tracking well, and I'll make sure that this gets sent through to the right channels, and you'll be able to print these off. Also massively useful for student groups in terms of talks.
So it's great to see that the information centre is going to have an upgrade, because clearly it's long overdue, and the sooner the better, as you indicated, Peter.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll look forward to seeing that chart distributed to us. Thank you, Oscar. Right, Councillor Gould.
Chair, Oscar, thank you for your report. Are you still concentrating on the Australian, the Japanese and the American market? Because if you concentrate on one market, it's like China, if something goes wrong with that market, at least you've got other markets which will step up and come through, because you've got the tourism scare in Europe, and that should bring a few people down this way as well.
Through the chair, absolutely. The Australia remains our number one market. China is number two. In the US and the UK will constantly be what we call our core traditionals. Whilst we are better enabling our industry to deal with the nuances of the China market, and the predominant one is the cultural and language, they are quite well heeled and experienced at the top three. So whilst it might look like we are overtly focusing on one market in particular, it's more around prepping the quality of delivery. Our activity offshore in those other markets is at the same level we have always been. And we're pretty much a mini-me of those top three markets are the same as Tourism New Zealand. So we are following the footsteps of, we are an RTO, they are the NTO, the National Tourism, and we're following those footsteps. Won't take a while for that.
Thank you, Councillor Stu.
Questions. Firstly, Oscar, and you're probably in a strong position to answer this question. Oscar, have you had any feedback on how much the CBD revitalisation has added to the visitor industry experience and the perceptions by visitors of Rotorua?
I think both the Chair and I would like to answer this one. Absolutely. When we first launched the journey that ended up pointing us in the direction of the tagline, famously Rotorua, we did a dearth of research 3 and a bit years ago. A lot of the research that came back was CBD specifically. Old, tired, elements of unsafe, unclear, and so forth. We, as any prudent marketing entity would, we've rechecked from the neck up 3 years later in terms of those messages. We've got the research. I could probably top line the research for you and send it with this information as well. And essentially, a lot of those concerns have massively come back at the other end of the scale in terms of these are for particularly the people that have been recently. We wish that other centres around New Zealand would look at themselves the same way we have. It has had a massive impact. Vibrancy is the other thing that we can't understate, is also sticking to our guns and being consistent on things such as the vision we had for what is now a very firmly developed night markets on Thursdays. Classic example is the night markets are now being written into free and independent travel guides. They have been accepted by wholesalers and others as it's a free night, but the place to go is the night market. Any of you that have been to night markets, you know that you're bumping shoulders with internationals all the time. So absolutely.
If I could answer, Councillor, just as a visitor myself, whenever I'm down in Rotorua, I always make a point of staying overnight. and I stay in a different partner hotel for obvious reasons, to kind of mystery shop. And I always walk through the CBD, and I think the CBD is a credit to all of you. The work that's been done in terms of the pocket landscaping is just fabulous, and I think the city's a real credit to you at the moment. It just looks fabulous. So as a visitor, I think the answer's a resounding yes.
No, Madam Chair, as I'm always looking at increasing business opportunities for the visitor, I just wondered in the future whether you would be considering putting an eyesight presence at Waipa in terms of the building of the international BMX track and the growth and those huge numbers of people coming here every weekend to experience the trails. We've got more trails development planned, etc. And I just wondered whether there was an opportunity for an eyesight presence similar to the Redwoods. I know it's only over the hill, but in terms of Waipa, and whether that could be looked into as an opportunity to engage further with our visitor industry, and to also increase the possibilities of more jobs for people, because that's what we want in terms of our tourism industry. And as Councillor McVicker said, I mean, and Councillor Rank and we were just chatting, the presence of people in Rotorua even since Christmas is just mammoth. That's why we're raising issues about traffic congestion and issues of that. So I'd like an answer to whether you would consider it a business opportunity with the eyesight in the long term.
Yeah, sure. Councillor Sturt, we if you have been to the night market, you know that we have a presence there now. So our philosophy is that we'll take the eyesight to wherever people are collecting and gathering. So the Waipa car park is something I've had a look at previously. We do have a caravan that we haven't done anything with yet, that we inherited from Event and Venues, and we are possibly looking at skinning that and taking it to places like Waipa. It is very important for our visitors to get the whole story about Rotorua, and you're right. So, as I said, that's something we have been looking at, and possibly in the future we'll have some sort of portable eyesight that we can take around.
Yeah, Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. And first one is a huge bouquet, Oscar and Peter, regarding the 105 on board now for the Partners program, and will be over that $1 million. I mean, that's great for a local TLA. Brilliant. The question, Peter, you just touched on briefly on a brand. What do you think? What did you mean by that?
I was simply referring to the famously Rotorua brand.
Yeah, I was branding. Then you touched on Tourism New Zealand, 100% keeping that. But
just
were
making
you thinking of there might be?
No, I think that my sense is that coming into this late, that famously Rotorua has got a lot to offer, and I think there's still a lot of life left in the brand yet. So I think it's been well thought through, and I think there's plenty of opportunity to continue to expand the execution of that brand.
Right. Oh, but huge bouquet, guys.
Councillor Donaldson and then Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I just wanted to say it'd be remiss of me not to acknowledge the support of Destination Rotorua and the famously partnership with the delivery of Crankworks. But what's even more exciting is the activation that you do in lifting the profile of the event and getting people there. And all the partners, all the stakeholders are engaging in that. And I hear that not only Air New Zealand but also Emirates are now playing the commercials on their flights. So it's really exciting. And if we could just find someone who could organise the weather, I'd be a lot happier. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Accolades to the pair of you and your team with regard to your achievements as reported. Just one little thing, one little note. I recently was invited to a tour on a French cruise, small cruise ship, and they had a map of the destinations for that particular cruise, and for where they were at Mount Maunganui, the destination was Rotorua, and I think you've done pretty well there.
Oh, well, thank you very much. We a really interesting report, and we appreciate you coming to, and the wait you endured. Thank you. So now I'd like to welcome to the table the Rotorua Contracting Limited team, and I understand we've got Mr. Boyd with us today, and Leith, I think, is away, and our manager, of course, Tim Hammond. So welcome to both of you, and we look forward to your presentation. We haven't got information, but we look forward to your presentation, and there'll be some questions following that. So I'll leave it with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your Worship, councillors, thanks for the opportunity to talk with you. Yes, I just want to pass on Leith's apologies. He has been at Wellington today, so unfortunately couldn't be with us, so I'm sort of deputising for him as his deputy. Can I just, by way of comment, before I hand over to Tim to cover the presentation, the board is very comfortable where we are. Tim, we're still evolving. Tim has been in the role now for just on 9 months, around about, and the board's very happy with what Tim's been doing and managed to achieve in the time that he's been here. I think it's probably fair to say we're focusing on 3 things at the moment. Number one is getting our governance right. We've spent a lot of time looking at how our board will operate. We've set up subcommittees in health and safety and in audit and risk. We have a board charter and a health and safety charter, and just by way of comment, I want to say that our health and safety charter emphasises a culture of care, which is much more than just compliance. Most health and safety charters will just focus on compliance, particularly with new legislation coming in. We want to go beyond that and have a culture of care that goes, sets standards much higher than that through all the work that we do throughout the district. The board itself has settled in well, and I think, as I said, we're very comfortable with what Tim and his team are doing at the moment. The second thing that we're focusing on is our operational capability, and that's about getting our structure right, getting the financial reporting right, and Tim in his presentation will talk a lot more about that going forward. And the third thing, of course, is getting our service level agreement right, so we understand the council's expectations in terms of the services they need delivered, and we're currently just finalising the statement of intent in that regard. Looking forward, we're very keen to get wider strategies that'll give us increased revenue streams, which is important for our net contribution to council. But very much our first focus is to get our fundamentals right and get the operational capability up and running. So I'll hand over to Tim now to talk about our current operational focus and our performance. Tim.
So I want to run through quickly 5 points. First of all, a bit about health and safety, then about the financial results, the non-financial results, some of the strategic focus we're putting in, and also an operational overview. The key part, and the reason we have health and safety first is it is so vital in what we do. We have to get that right, and it is an important part of the cultural shift of the organisation. And probably the key point that has been occupying our time is probably the bottom one on there. Are we doing what we say we should be? I've brought in some new managers, I've restructured the organisation, and I've made the focus of those people use their fresh eyes and their fresh look at the organisation to ask, what should we be doing? What are we actually doing? We have discovered some issues in that. There are things we have in our manuals and our processes and the things that are supposed to happen, but when you get out and test in the field, they're not, and it's fixing that. And that health and safety is the point we focus on that, but it's also in other areas as well, around sometimes quality and other work aspects. We have to get the health and safety right, but it's driving that culture amongst the staff that you've got to do it the way we're supposed to do it, not just the way you feel comfortable or what suits you on that day, which is some of the attitude we've encountered. So a lot of work going on there, and we're very aware of the new legislation coming in. We have a review in March, just benchmarking us against that new legislation. We've done a lot of work on it already, but it's sort of a final check before that comes in. Is there stuff we need to do and change and develop an action plan, not only for 1st of April, when the new legislation comes in, but also going forward on health and safety. Health and safety is something we cannot stand still on or think job done. It is continually going forward. In terms of the financial position, the overall approach was slightly behind where we would be in the long-term plan. The long-term plan is the basis of our budget by slightly $30,000 overall. Some of that's a phasing and timing issue. Probably the key thing is, and it's been alluded to in one of the earlier discussions at the committee, we've had some challenges over the summer period. It has been a phenomenal growth period. We've had to put extra money and spend into things like subcontractors to help us keep on with mowing workload. We've pushed our equipment hard. It's not the newest equipment, and there's been a lot of breakdowns and issues around that. Those have incurred some costs that we weren't anticipating, but those are the things when you've got a service to deliver, the risks you run. I'm not overly concerned in the longer term consequence of that. It's something we can manage with the 6 months to go. Our revenue for council is close, slightly up on LTP, but close to the budget overall. The costs, as I say, there's been extra expenditure in the area of delivering the service, but I think we can manage that down. So overall, I say it's a net effect of 30,000. We were slightly ahead last quarter. We're about on plan now. With some of the changes we've put in place, I think we'll catch that up and move ahead further in the next quarter. The other part in terms of our performance is, as set out in the statement of intent, are some areas of focus. I'm not going to go through those in detail. Probably the key ones I'd got from there are on the I think I mentioned last time ACC accreditation. We were forced into a situation where we had to reapply for accreditation, having just helped council get theirs before we became a CCO. We have since addressed that and gone straight to tertiary accreditation ourselves, which the feedback from the auditor is that, well, there's not many organisations who start and go straight to tertiary, so they said actually you're in a good state from that perspective. The most important thing though on health and safety, I feel, is we had too many injuries in the past, too many lost time injuries, and we've made that a focus of bringing that down and taking a zero harm approach. We've had only 2 LTIs in the first half of the year compared to 6 in the previous year, and that for the same period. That's a major step forward, and it continues to be a focus on driving that there. Whatever the legislation may say, whatever the paperwork is, the primary point, and it goes back to Ian's comment around that care for our employees, we have to get that right. And driving that is a very important part of leading us to then be operationally excellent on top of that. The key thing on this one probably is about growth. I said last time we were here, I had some concerns about the capability of the organisation we inherited in terms of running work, to ability to tender competitively for work. We flushed that out in the first quarter. We've addressed it in the second quarter, where we are now actually able to tender for work and be credible in that tender. So far we've tendered for over $1 million of work. Not a great success rate yet, but being a non-compliant tender first time up to actually, we're getting shortlisted. So we're definitely moving forward. I will be really happy when we get to the point of actually external work, we're picking it up on a routine basis. So we are moving forward, and it's great to have changed that from where we were in the first quarter. I've talked about health and safety. That second point, focus on our core service obligations. Our service obligations are vague. We have really struggled to sit down and get everybody to agree, both at the council end and our end, what actually is required. And pin it down to the detail, there is no ambiguity around it. That is work in progress, but the end's in sight. with all Dave Foster's team and their managers, we've sat and had sessions with those guys, and we've gotten to the point where we can see it happening, and we've now got to the point where we are getting far more confident about being able to plan for next year and budget and work out charges that are correct for the services being delivered. So we have moved forward. It has been a hard slog though, and that's been a huge part of our operational capacity. The restructure that I talked about last time has been put in place. The staff have been appointed. We did some external recruitment, especially in some of the leadership roles. They're all in place now. There are things happening in the organisation in the last couple of months since we've had that in place that have really started to shake the organisation up and get things moving. So we're achieving the results we're after from that. Performance targets. Been looking hard at this one. One of the philosophies was if no one's complaining, it's okay. Run into that attitude a lot. We've been tackling that and trying to get a more proactive performance. How can we improve? Don't accept what's in there, and actually have measures and targets in place rather than rely on the squeaky wheel approach, which is what has been in the past. So we're tackling those things and changing the organisation, but you don't change those overnight. You have to actually philosophically shift people's mindset right down to the operator on the field. But that is certainly being flagged as not acceptable anymore to be the approach. I want people to be proactive in performance and think about not only how can you prove it, that you're doing well, but also how can you improve it, go forward. And we have, which is some great joy, and it's not often I can get a management team get excited about preparing a budget, but there was a very happy group of managers when we actually managed to get a full bottom-up budget pulled together for the first time ever and get the board to approve it. So it was actually strange to see engineers and operations people getting quite interested in actually, I've got an approved budget, yay, which is a big change around in the organisation. I've talked about the capability gap we had, and we've done quite a bit of work to improve that. Strategic planning, we've just started those conversations. We've had the initial ones. We've got some clarity with the board. The big thing for us first up is get our house in order, get that core capability. One of the things we've looked at in the last quarter was lessons from similar CCO models around the country and when they've succeeded and when they've failed. And a lot of the key messages of that are people who are trying to run before they can walk. They're going out trying to do things and they find they fall on their face because they haven't got those base capabilities right. So it's a very clear focus. We have to get that right and be credible and professional. And I want us to be, when we go out in the first piece of external work we pick up, we're straight away a professional, successful organisations that are a great representative of Rotorua. The last thing on operational overview. I've mentioned that the behind the scenes are reviewing everything. What does the client want? What do we actually do? What does it cost? How does that compare to what we charge for services? We've had some issues. There's been attracted some attention around those things like the night market and what it actually costs and those things, and working those things out. It's getting the honest answer. So put the right numbers on the table so we can make the right decisions about it. By hiding things or not understanding things, we actually risk making the wrong decisions. So fleshing that out has been a big thing. We've had some operational wins, good feedback on the garden, the presentation of the city. Last year, I understand, through the holiday period, the cemeteries were a big issue. That's not correct. I got one complaint last week. That's the first one since December, so there's been no issues. And that improving the focus on performance in the reactive work areas. So driving that down to what actually is a good performance. Don't just rely on that. Are they ringing up and complaining? Actually, how do you prove proactively we're performing well? There have been some challenges though. One of those, the mowing up there, we have struggled to deliver what Rob and his team are asking us to do. We haven't kept up with the growth. We have had a mower fleet that is admittedly an aging fleet, but we've worked it so hard, bits are falling off all over the place, and we're now putting together an investment plan to bring that up to standard. We've had to go out and talk to external subcontractors to add to our mowing capability. I think we've got currently 6 temporary staff we've taken on additionally to man the mowers and work them as hard as we can, but we've struggled to keep up. We've got to have, in order to deliver that service, a better answer to be able to cope with the situation. It's not good enough on our part. We're not where we want to be, but we've at least we know that, and we're doing something about it now. I mentioned the poor project management and planning skills. We're looking to address that, and the financial processing I've talked about before. The refuse one at the top there, we had a little issue. So you may see in the coming weeks a different rubbish truck out collecting the rubbish, just so people are aware, and they'll say, what's that? I think it's Eco Waste as the truck. We've rented that off them. Yeah. The reason we've done that, we found an issue with our 7-year-old trucks are not actually legally allowed to carry a full load. It's been an issue for 7 years, but we've actually found it now, and so we're addressing it. We've said, okay, we'll get a temporary fix. We've hired in a truck to allow the solution to that. The problem itself will be resolved in the new refuse collection contract that comes into place later this year, but it's not a new issue, it's just an issue we've detected. The key is we're doing something about it, and it should keep the service running. In that refuse area, we've also got staff with low morale. They can see what's going to happen to them in September when the changeover occurs. We're trying to support them through that, but it is a challenge through that process. And lastly, I want to talk about some of the quiet achievers, those who don't attract a lot of comments or feedback, but areas like the nursery, they get on and do the job. I only ever hear positive things about the nursery. I don't hear a lot, but when it is, it's positive. They've just achieved 10 years without a lost time injury. With nursery operations, that's phenomenal. What they do is there's physical work in there. They're moving plants around. That's for everything. Their hire business, their the actual nursery operation, etc. So that's fantastic. The city clean crews, they work at night. They are doing the cleaning in the streets. They're out and about in hours that other people don't see them, but they're very efficient. They're a great crew of people, and they do fantastic work. The janitorial service, theirs is a thankless task, especially with all the tourists coming into town. Cleaning the public toilets and staying on top of that, given the numbers we've had, the number of issues we've had is remarkably low. But they've quietly just gone on and do it. And once again, they're out 7 days a week doing all that and dealing with all those issues and amongst the public and the tourists who are visiting. And everything is positive around that team. It's quite amazing. And the last one is the stadium and sports field workers. I never hear anything about those guys, except when there's some big event at the stadium, they say, wow, doesn't it look fantastic? And that's those guys. So they are the quiet achievers in the organisation. I have to remind people, actually, we need to pat those guys on the back regularly, because they get things done, but they're so good at it that nobody notices. So that's the key there. So that's the final point I wanted to cover. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, and really has brought us up to speed, and I appreciate you highlighting the quiet achievers. I think that's a good way to do that. And I just wanted to ask one quick question, just around the refuse workers. Is there an opportunity, do you think, to sort of find work for them within Rotorua contracting elsewhere, or not?
Where we can, we will look for opportunities for the other staff. The reality is, and we have on some of that staff taken them on as temporary staff, so it's always part of their employment terms they've brought on. But we've got the core of the drivers. We will be approaching, in fact, we have already approached the major tenderers for the collection work to say, look, we've got crew. They'll be out of a job, they know the area, they've got the skills, and to try and give them an intro there. So if we can't find them work, we'll try and get them work with the other contractors who come in and support them as they can. But I'm going to struggle to find work for heavy truck drivers because they're my only heavy trucks at the moment.
Mindful of the time here, we've just got a couple more things to get through. Councillor Gould.
Chair, when you talk about the mowers, are you talking about the cutting part of the mowing service or the tractor part of the mowing service?
Both.
Okay. Now, in the report which we've been given, it says Rotorua Contracting have been supported through their ACC accreditation and achieved a terrestrial rating, which is a good outcome. Were you happy with, or do you think there was a better outcome from ACC?
Tertiary is the top accreditation, so it's the best. So yes, it is a very good outcome. I was worried we'd only get secondary. There are some things, that part of what I talked about at the start about there's what we've got written down, there's what we do in the field. We exposed those. We were quite open with the ACC auditors and said, look, we found these things, we're addressing them, this is what we're doing. They said, fine, you're on top of the issues. We would have been downgraded if we'd been hiding that stuff. So it's a good outcome.
Can I just add one thing, Madam Chair, to that we are also looking at getting an external safety audit as well, which takes us a level above the ACC requirements as well, particularly in light of the new health and safety legislation, just to make sure that we've got all the processes and procedures in place that we need.
That's good, very good to know you have got such emphasis on it. Right, Councillor Rokawate.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Tim, for the mahi that you've been doing over the last 9 months. It's obvious that things are moving along there. You've mentioned that you've got poor planning management, project management and planning skills within the organisation there. Are you planning to bring on board other people or to perhaps build capacity and provide training so that the existing staff can come up to scratch?
A combination of all of those. I have brought some staff in, and they're the people who've been in place for the last couple of months to address that. We've identified a couple of staff internally to be upskilled. We are also looking at potentially bringing in some contracted resources from local companies who can provide support in that area. So it's all the above, no one fixed solution. And we've also discussed with the board potential partnership models with people who are good at this, to say actually, why reinvent the wheel ourselves? Is there others we can align ourselves with to actually build this capability?
Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Hunt.
Just a brief question. I just wondered, what about your figures on employee turnover in the period of this change? Because obviously on our own dashboard, ours is sitting at about 18%.
Yeah, I don't have the actual number. We did go through the restructure process. I would have to get back to you on the number, but I don't think it's as high as that. I think we're probably 10, 12. I think we'll be.
Appreciate your presentation today and very useful. Okay, could someone please put the motion to the vote? Yes, that's right. I do need a movement. A mover. I'll read it out for the online screenings. Move Councillor Gould, seconded Councillor Hunt, that the report operational and financial updates for council and council-controlled organisations and Destination Rotorua Business Unit be received. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Now we'll just briefly, while Thomas is getting his presentation ready, go back to page 37. You had a question, Councillor Maxwell. You raised it just at the last bit when we were already moving along, so I asked you to wait. So just, what's your question why Thomas is coming? Yeah. Okay, right. Okay, thank you. So there wasn't a question there? No. Okay. Okay. Okay, righto. All right, now we're on to our financial performance. Could someone please move recommendation 2, that the report financial performance for the 7 months ended January 2016 be received? Moved Councillor Sturt, seconded Councillor Rotorua Tate. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Hi, Thomas. You're not used to being last, are you? So have you got a slideshow? We'll go through and then questions afterwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just it'll be a brief presentation, about 5 to 6 slides. So, Council, the 7-month result, it's very pleasing to come back to you and let you know that the position from January has continued, so we are on track to end the year on budget or within our budgets. For saying that, we've also had a look and we've identified no material variances that would result in us not achieving budget, and also not achieving the financial limits that are set within the LTP. And saying that, to use other people's words, it's not all rosy. There are still risks, and as Tim highlighted before, that obviously there's an extra cost of bringing in a rubbish truck because of our ageing fleet, and we've also got some pressure on with regards to maintenance issues on some of our properties still. But overall, those are being balanced to deliver the overall result to date. So, scratching away another layer, so the operating result itself is 1.4 million better than budget for the 7-month period. So revenues are better than budget. Leading the charge is the museum on that front, with its record this month and its previous record, I think the previous month, which it smashed in February. Expenditure is tracking, is less than budget as well for the period. Some of that is down to timing. And for the forecast for the year end is for the operating result to be about 700,000 better than budget. But within that, you'll see revenues ahead of budget, better than budget, but expenditure is expected to creep over budget as a result of some extra costs that will come down to the extra revenue that's being generated. So as an example, the museum, great revenue, some of that is retail. Obviously, as you sell retail stock, you need to buy more retail stock, so that drives some cost back into the organisation. On the capital expenditure front, so we have done our latest full reforecast for the year. So there are some minor overs and unders, but there really are 5 key projects that are impacting on our forecast year-end spend, which is going to be a net $5.7 million less than budget. The spend itself will be $8 million, but we're also expecting capital subsidies to be down as well to provide that net. So those 5 projects, if I just flick to my page so I make sure I get them right, there's 2 which relate to the Performing Arts Centre. So the concert chamber upgrade isn't going ahead because the external funding was declined. The earthquake strengthening of the concert chamber is being deferred into future years, waiting on the report that Councillor McVickers mentioned earlier on with regards to the status of our overall buildings. T-Rex has been deferred, and we've deferred that out to 2019-2020, along with the balance of that capital spend related to exiting of the forest of the land treatment system. The eyesight has been pushed into all next year, so we did have the budget split across 2 years, but all that earthquake strengthening work is targeted for next year. And the ERP, which I'll explain next month with a bit of a presentation with what I actually mean by ERP, effectively an upgrade to our finance system and other systems that hang off that, is going ahead, but the majority of that expenditure will now fall into next year. So overall, that'll deliver a $5.7 million less spend than budget. So when you take those 2 together, I think you understand what the impact therefore is on our current debt position and where we're forecast to be. So our current debt is $167 million. That's $500,000 less than our opening position last year, at the start of the year, sorry. We are forecast to increase by a further $1 million. So there was a challenge that was set out to us at last Metso and M. So we believe at this moment that we can achieve only a $1 million increase with regards to the changes to the Capital Works program. We don't believe we should look harder at our Capital Works program to achieve that further $1 million savings, because we think we will achieve it anyway. Because there's no doubt a number of projects that need to happen between now and the end of the year. they'll likely come in under budget, some will be deferred across future years, and there's a likelihood that a couple may not go ahead either. So I think within that, there is scope to end the year taking on no debt at all. And the key thing, though, is to still deliver the bulk of our capital works program. When I talked about the 5 projects that were deferred. So for those councillors that were at the annual plan forum last week, we showed what the impact was that over the 10-year program. So it's important that it's great that we're not doing projects this year, and which means we can pull our debt projection down. But there are consequences into future years, so we have to understand what that is. So we've taken our 10-year capital program, and we've placed those projects in the years that we expect them to be, and looked at our forward projections with regards to our operating results as well. And we believe that overall we can accommodate these, plus additional programs in our capital works program, and overall we're seeing an improvement in our 10-year debt reduction program, as explained to you at last week's forum. So on that, councillors, just any questions?
First of all, Thomas, I just would like to say I don't intend, apparently at the annual plan forum, of which I wasn't there because I was on a bus transport committee meeting, I don't intend to rehash any of that. So apparently there were only 5 there. So I have to catch up. I've got to catch up on the detail, and I don't want to rehash that now. It's too late, and I don't think we should be doing that. And just before we go to questions, I do want to say I actually really appreciate the effort of looking at the challenge and trying to, from last meeting, of not borrowing any money, and I think coming in even $1 million more than what the challenge was is excellent, and hopefully that's less. But we've got to manage it, don't we? We don't want to have projects dropped off that can be done, and that wasn't my expectation at all. So I appreciate that you understood that and are working really hard to make that happen, and so I want to appreciate and applaud your efforts, Thomas, for that. So I will now open it up for discussion, and I'm not sure which hand was up first. There were so many. It was Councillor Sturt, I remember.
Kind Madam Chair, as usual. The 5 projects that are not being done, Thomas, they will not fall off the radar because the redevelopment of the concentrator is one area that concerns me, even though the Rotorua Energy Charitable Trust didn't see fit to assist us with the funding. Are we still going to pursue that and seek other partners that may come on board with that? Because I understood it's still required, it's still needed.
Yes, councillor, the reason I said that it is stopped, that obviously there was a commitment made to you during the long-term plan that without that external funding it wouldn't go. A group of in council looking at that to source alternative funding options ahead, and so that's where we are at the moment.
So McVicar?
A bit disappointed to hear that the eyesight project will not proceed, given that I think it was around 1.2 million.
Sorry, councillor, it will go ahead. We originally budgeted.
I'm talking about this current year, because in your report, or their report, Destination Rotorua, on page 52, plan is to get it started over the shoulder season.
Correct. So it comes
so now
out.
you're going to defer it till when?
So it comes out of this financial year, and the target is to do it in the August, September, October period of this next. So the first 3 to 4 months of next financial year.
Is that feasible given the period that you have, and you'd want it completed for the Christmas rush?
We are advised that it is, and so that's what's being worked on. Yes.
Just a question on the totals. Did you say 1.2 for the eyesight?
That was the 50% of the budget that was included in this financial year. Yes.
Okay, and so what about the others? Can I just have the totals that'll add up to 8.4?
Sorry, councillor, I don't have that breakdown available, but I will email it to you later today.
Was that provided at the annual plan forum?
On the annual plan forum, you are correct that there is there was a slide.
I had another meeting as well.
There was a slide that showed what each of those were.
I had a funeral.
I just don't have that information.
No, I was just saying, I would just said previously that those of us who couldn't be at the annual plan forum, we will need to catch up later and Thomas said he will give us that information. So I don't want to rehash
All
what
I'm
was at a
asking
forum.
is for him to send me an email of the breakdown of the 8.4 million.
Yes, I understand that,
Thank you.
Councillor Srank, and I guess it will be also come a rehash at the next annual plan forum. Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report, Thomas. From your page 38, I noticed that the debt will probably be 168 million on the 30th of June. You've got a saving of 5.7 million off your budget. That's what you put on the screen up there. Does that mean the debt in 10 years' time will be less than 205 million or be approximately 205 million with the saving this year?
If you recall, Councillor, at last week's annual plan forum, I did give an indication that it would likely be 8 million less than what we actually have in the LTP. So rather than reducing debt by 18.5 million across the 10 years, it will likely increase by a further 8 million, so 25-ish million. Did that answer the question?
All right, thank you. So we've done all the recommendation, haven't we, Carol? Yep, I think we did that. Yes, I'm pretty sure we did. Yeah. Okay. So the only other thing now we have is the confidential part. I know, Councillor Srank, you wanted an update on the resource consent, the hearings. JP has had to go, so he's asked me to provide that to you. If you all want to know, we can go into confidence. If you don't, I can just let Councillor Srank know later. But all right then, so we'll move into confidence. Because someone moved Councillor Sturt that we move into public excluded. Seconded Councillor Hunt. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So we'll just... Mary Ann will make sure it's off. Okay. So could someone in the first instance just move that our operations and monitoring confidential of 4th of February be accepted as a true and correct record? Moved Councillor Srank, seconded Councillor Sturt. All in favour, please say aye. Against?